Hello fellow astrologers, and welcome back to our next set of videos in our basic birth chart series, CD2, Sara's birth chart. In this video, CD2L, we will go over her birth chart interpretation for all the signs in her luminaries, also known as the Big Three. In our last video, CD2C, we went over how we entered her birth information into the Astro 123 software here to generate a birth chart. We also showed how we compiled the information to do our report and went over the freeware's report feature. So now we're going to talk about her Big Three: the Sun, the Moon, and the Ascendant. In this case, the Ascendant is here, and her Sun and Moon are over here. This is the Sun and this is the Moon. They're actually opposed her Ascendant. So the Big Three is a big part of taking your step out away from basic horoscope, which is just what your sun sign is. In this case, you have the combination of your Ascendant and your Moon gives you a lot more combos. If you just did your horoscope, there's only 12 different options. But when you combine these three here together, you get 1,728 different possibilities. And that's just those three, let alone when you get into all the other planets and points of interest. Now, traditionally, the Ascendant isn't actually a luminary, but because it has the equal amount of weight as the Sun and the Moon when it comes to interpreting a chart, we're tying those all together as a luminary. So in this case, she has a Capricorn Ascendant. And let's go ahead and read a little bit about it, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. A Capricorn Ascendant gives Sara a presence of grounded authority and determination. She naturally projects composure and purpose, often coming across as someone others can rely on during times of uncertainty. Emphasizes steady progress and tangible results. She's someone who climbs towards her goals one careful step at a time. Beneath her calm surface lies a profound drive to build something meaningful and lasting, often in a professional or leadership context. Capricorn rising people tend to mature early, developing a quiet wisdom that commands respect without demanding it. At times, this can manifest as a guarded exterior or self-imposed restraint, but it's rooted in a deep desire for control and self-mastery. Capricorn Ascendant sometimes have no filter and just say what they want to say. Over time, Sara's life unfolds as a story of perseverance, a continual refinement of integrity, resistance, and success earned through consistent effort. Okay, so the Ascendant itself is kind of like a social operating system. It's kind of how we move through the world before people ever really get to know what our Sun and Moon is like. It's kind of why I refer to it as the superego. It's the mask you see when you first meet somebody. It's the presence you put up when you're not sure and you're in a situation where you're new to people or the surroundings. People with Capricorn rising have a natural air of control, composure, and reliability. People can just sense a steady, organized, and quiet confidence in people who have this placement. And for Sara, this is the part of the psyche that says, be responsible, hold it together, and keep moving forward no matter what. There's an inner pressure here from the superego's voice, always striving for self-mastery and long-term achievement. When Capricorn Ascendant comes out to the forefront, others trust her professionalism and respect her work ethic. She's not loud then, but her presence can still be felt solidly. Capricorn rising often filters emotions through practicality, appearing calm even when her inner mind and thoughts are busy. The challenging part can be when you're called upon to bring out this presence, how to learn how to not over-control or over-criticize things in the process of being the strong one. Part of the growth path for Capricorn Ascendant is learning how to soften that protective armor and let warmer parts of your chart show up. Especially with the bunch of Gemini that she has over here, that'll help her learn how to loosen up the balance to go more towards a little bit more approachability. And on that note, let's go ahead and move on to the next step, the Gemini Sun. The Sun is the ego, and it's the next step when you move away from the superego, where you're defending yourself more and being protective and guarded with your ascendant. You're opening up and letting people know a little bit more about yourself when you get into the Sun. And in this case, we're talking about Gemini, which is a very friendly site. It's huge on communication. A matter of fact, it rules Mercury, which is the planet of communication. Gemini does a lot to soften up what comes across as a little bit stern here in the Capricorn. Once you get to know Sara a little bit more, she softens up and loosens up and becomes someone who's a lot more communicative. So let's go ahead and read from the paragraph, and then we'll discuss it a little bit more. Sara's Gemini Sun lights up her chart with quick intellect, adaptability, and a curiosity that seems limitless. Her energy thrives in motion through conversation, discovery, and sharing of ideas. With her Sun in a very last degree of Gemini, she embodies the archetype of communicator in its most developed form. A lively mind bridging many perspectives and often translating complexity into charity for others. Gemini's mutable air nature gives her the gift of seeing multiple sides of any issue, and she likely has a charming wit or humor that makes her approachable. This placement thrives when life offers variety and mental stimulation. Routines can feel like cages. In relationships and careers, Sara excels where she can connect, teach, write, speak, or explore through languages and media. Yet the challenge lies in focus to take her many insights and weave them into one coherent vision that carries her forward with purpose. Yes, so Gemini is the mutable air sign. The sun sign is the core self and how we define our identity and express our purpose out. With the sun sign in Gemini, the ego thrives through communication, curiosity, and mental movement. So she becomes herself by learning, talking, and connecting with others. Gemini energy is also fast and adaptable, and it thrives on variety. The ego here doesn't want to be pinned down. It wants options, experiences, and the sense to play in how it shows up in the world. And since Gemini is the ruler of Mercury and one of the masters of communication, it has a very strong need to be understood. Words are the bridge here to others and her way of making sense to herself. Gemini has a magical ability to adapt to many different kinds of situations. So the ego energy here can shapeshift itself very easily, reading the room, adapting her tone, and expressing many sides of herself depending on the situation. And the mutability really lends flexibility to one of her strengths, but it can also scatter her focus or lead to overthinking who she should be. One of the ultimate expressions of Gemini Sun is storytelling. Whether through teaching, writing, humor, or dialogue, Sara's Gemini Sun shines when her ideas are in motion and shared. Growth for this placement comes from staying curious but grounded. By using her Capricorn Ascendant steadiness to anchor her whirlwind of thoughts into something lasting and meaningful. Now, typically men are more in touch with their suns than they are with their moons, which is why they tend to have a hard time discussing their inner feelings. Where women were actually more in touch with their moons than their suns, which is why they're always deeper in their feelings and understanding about their deeper selves than men usually are. But in this case, Sara is both a Gemini Sun and Moon. So let's scroll down here and look at the Moon. So you're going to see that in her case, she has both of them coming out at the same time. Her deeper self of the id has a lot of similarities to her actual ego presence of the Sun. So let's go ahead and move on and read about Gemini Moon. Women are more in touch with their moons. And in this case, she is both the Gemini Sun and Moon. They will act similarly, but the Sun is the ego, which is more of the outer persona, while the Moon is the id, the inner persona. With her Moon in Gemini, Sara expresses emotions through the lens of thought and communication. This placement brings a lively, restless, emotional nature. Feelings are possessed by talking, writing, or thinking them through, often with an urge to understand rather than to simply feel. Her mind and her heart operate as one, creating both strength and complexity. Moods can shift quickly, yet she rarely stays down for long. Curiosity fuels her emotional world. She needs new ideas, people, and mental stimulation to feel alive. The Moon here also points to a youthful spirit, one that finds emotional comfort in learning and connecting. Yet when life becomes too noisy, she may scatter her energies or intellectualize feelings instead of expressing them directly. Her emotional growth comes through learning to balance logic with vulnerability. Embracing communication is not just an exchange of words, but a bridge between the mind and the heart. Okay, so the Moon is raw emotion itself, where the ego is more about your presence, about yourself. The Moon is that deeper side, the emotional side. It's a part of us that feels first and thinks later. It represents our instinctual reactions, our inner child, and what makes us feel safe. With the Moon in Gemini, Sara's emotions are filtered through language and thought. She processes feelings by analyzing, talking, or even writing them out, which is part of why we refer to it as the id. The emotional instincts here is curious, adaptable, and mentally active. She rarely sits still in her feelings. She wants to understand them. Her comfort comes from stimulation, conversations, learning something new, or staying socially connected. Boredom can actually feel emotionally uncomfortable. Gemini moons need variety and a freedom to explore how they feel. They're emotional shapeshifters. Not because they're fake, but because they feel many things at once. The id here doesn't hide, it multitasks. One emotion triggers another thought, which triggers another question. It's a quicksilver flow of thoughts. This moon placement often uses humor or storytelling as an emotional release valve. So talking about her feelings is how she heals them. At times, the mind can race faster than the heart, so she may intellectualize emotions instead of just feeling them. So one of the big lessons to learn by Gemini Moon is that emotional intelligence isn't only about clarity, it's about learning how to slow down enough to hear what the heart is saying beneath all the noise. So when you have Gemini Moon and Sun together, you have your thoughts and your emotions all in the same sign. Her whole being becomes a communicator. But when they're overwhelmed, quiet reflection or journaling may help restore that inner balance. Okay, so now let's take a step back and look at all three of these together. Because when we put all three of these together, the Ascendant, the Sun, and the Moon, we're seeing the full structure of someone's personality. How we appear, how we think, and how we feel. The Capricorn Ascendant shapes how Sara moves through the world. Practical, composed, and determined. It's the superego voice saying, keep it together, do it right, and earn respect. The Gemini Sun expresses her ego, the storytelling side of her identity, consistently learning, teaching, and redefining what I am means through communication and curiosity. And the Gemini Moon, her id, is the restless emotional core, the inner child who wants to talk it out, stay curious, and make meaning through mental connection. Together, these three show a person who feels deeply but thinks quickly. Someone whose emotions and self-image both rely on understanding, logic, and expression. Capricorn keeps her grounded, while Gemini helps her lighten up things and be flexible. It's a blend of discipline, dialogue, structure, and spontaneity. Her journey is about balance, learning when to speak and when to listen, when to plan and when to play, when to lead and when to let go. When these three signs align, Sara becomes a powerful communicator, someone who can teach through lived wisdom, combining clarity of mind from the Gemini with the strength of purpose of Capricorn. So in essence, her luminaries are a thinker with heart and ambition, building her reality one conversation at a time. Okay, I think that pretty much sums up what her luminaries are. In the next video, we'll go over here to CD2IP for the inner planets, and we'll discuss her 3 inner planets. And also, I want to let people know, if you see any of these blue symbols here, you can click on them. They take you to the links, or if you want to do a Google search that tells you about what Capricorn Ascendant is in Natal, if you want a deeper dive to see what Google has to say, you can check these out. You also have here, if you just want to see what Capricorn is in Google or what the Ascendant is, you can look here. Or you can go to these other letters and numbers where we actually do the video on what an actual Capricorn or Ascendant is in some of our previous videos in our fundamental series, so you can get a better understanding of what these things are. We hope you have enjoyed this video from our Astrology Keyring series. If you like the content, please like, follow, and share with your friends. Thank you for watching, and have a blessed journey.